Shalom, this is Yahuah Magnified, and I'm back with another informative video. Today's video is titled Acknowledgement of Paternity. But before I tackle this subject, as always, I must state for the record, I'm not a lawyer, I do not practice law, and I do not pretend to. All my videos are for informational and educational purposes only. They're all facts and all truth. Nothing more, nothing less. So with that being said, guys, let's get to it. Okay, so today's video will in fact be on this document that's placed on the screen right now that you all can see that is titled Acknowledgement of Paternity, okay? So the reason why we're doing this, or we're going over this document titled the Acknowledgement of Paternity, is so you guys can get a better understanding of what have taken place in your case and how you all ended up in this situation called child support, okay? And also another reason why I'm making this video, because there are so many individuals that's hitting me up in my email and at the bottom of my comment section of my YouTube channel claiming that they have not entered into a contract. But then the moment I ask them, did they sign a birth certificate or acknowledge paternity, their answer is yes. Okay, so I'm going to prove today and let you all see without a shadow of a doubt that acknowledgement of paternity in fact created the contract, okay, which further along created the legal duty of support, okay, by establishing a parent-child relationship, okay? I know that sounds a lot for those that are unlearned at this current moment, but for those who are unlearned, simply go back and watch my older videos where I break down the information as well, okay, in more simpler terms. But now, as you see, let's go over this document so we can get a better understanding of what's going on. So at the top, it states what? Acknowledgement of paternity. So first, you must understand what acknowledgement means. So now, let's go to the Black Law Dictionary to get a better understanding of what acknowledgement means. Let's go there. Okay, so now, as you all can see, we're coming from the 4th edition of the Black Law Dictionary for the term acknowledge, which simply means to own, avow, or admit, to confess, to recognize one's acts, and assume the responsibility thereof. So basically, once you acknowledge paternity, you're just simply admitting that you are the child's father and that you are also admitting to take on the responsibility thereof, which means to take on the responsibility to support that child. Okay? But let's continue on to acknowledgement now. Okay, so we at the top, acknowledgement. To acknowledge, which we just read, is to what? Admit, affirm, declare, testify, avow, confess, or own as genuine. Okay, case law to support that. So now let's go to child, since we're dealing with child support. It states an avow or admission that the child is one's own, right? Then it states what? Recognition of a parental relation. What parental relation? The parent-child relationship, which must be established once one acknowledges paternity. But let's continue. Either by what? Either by a written agreement. We know a written agreement is in fact a contract, right? Let's continue on. Verbal declaration or statement. So if you go into open court and you admit on the record that you are the child's father, that also establishes the parent-child relationship, okay? Why? Because you said it out of your own mouth, which is also a verbal agreement or verbal contract. But let's continue. By the life, acts, and conducts of the party, meaning that if you acting as the father or claiming to be the father or taking on the role of the father, then you also establish paternity. But let's continue. Or any other satisfactory evidence that the relation was recognized and omitted. Okay? So even by your actions, you can admit that you are the child's father. Okay? So let's continue on. So now let's go back to the acknowledgement of paternity so we can continue to go over that contract so you all can see what exactly is taking place and how you all end up in this situation called child support. So let's go there. Okay, so now, as you all can see, we're right back at the acknowledgement of paternity form. So let's pick this up at the top where it states, before signing an acknowledgement of paternity, you should read the following information about your legal rights and the consequences of signing an acknowledgement of paternity. So we're going to stop right there at the current moment, okay? So now, this is what I want to do. I want to replace the word acknowledgement with the definition, okay? We know the definition for acknowledgement basically means what? The admission of the responsibility, okay? So now, let's replace the term acknowledgement with the definition. So we're going to replace it with the admission of responsibility. So let's read it again. Before signing an admission of responsibility of paternity, you should read the following information about your legal rights and the consequences of signing an admission of responsibility of paternity, okay? So Now that you read it like that, it makes more sense now that you are basically signing your life away to take on the responsibility of the child by methods of using of collections and this thing called child support, if it comes down to that. You know, if the child's mom go down and applies for services, okay? But also it states what? It states where it says you should read the following information about your legal rights. Let's find out exactly what legal rights is for those who do not believe that this acknowledgement of paternity form is in fact a contract. Let's go there. Okay, so now as you all can see, again, we're coming out of the 4th edition of the Black Law Dictionary for legal right. It states what? Natural rights, rights existing as a result of contract. Remember, guys, like I tell you all, once you sign that acknowledgement of paternity, the contract has been created. Okay? Like we went over in the early part of the video. But let's continue. It states what? As rights created or recognized by law. Okay? But let's continue on. It states, claim enforceable by legal means against person or community. Well-founded claims enforced by sanctions or rights to which state gives sanctions of remedies. Case law to support that. Then it states interest for infringement of which law gives a remedy. Case law to support that. Then it states personal interest or claim which society is willing to enforce. Okay? What society? The legal society, guys. Why else do you think they're bringing you to these courts in front of the Attorney General? Okay? All of these are legal proceedings. Okay? They are all contractual proceedings. Understand this. All right? So now let's go back to the acknowledgement of paternity form to continue to finish breaking this thing down. Let's go there. Okay, so let's pick this up at the top where it states what is an acknowledgement of paternity. Then it states an acknowledgement of paternity is a document that is signed by unmarried parents to establish the child's legal father. Both parties must voluntarily sign. So in this case, and on this document, you must voluntarily put your signature on there, okay? No one is putting a gun to you guys' heads telling you all that you must sign this document, okay? So again, you must voluntarily sign this document. So for those who are not on child support, for those who don't have a kid but you know, or a child, or you know, his seed, and expecting to have a seed born onto him, then he know it's his right not to sign that document or these documents, okay? And it's also his right not to get a child a birth certificate at all, okay? But let's continue. It states, again, unmarried parents to establish the child's legal father. We know what a legal father is, guys. A legal father is, in fact, the change of status from what? From biological father to legal father, okay? But we also know legal father is, in fact, a what? A legal title, okay? For those who don't know what a legal title is, let's go again to the Black Law Dictionary to get understanding of what, in fact, is a legal title. Let's go there. Okay, so now, as you all can see, we're coming right back from the 4th edition of the Black Law Dictionary. Let's pick this up at the term legal title, which states one cognizable or enforceable in a court of law. Remember, guys, they only bring the alleged legal father in the court of law. They can never bring the biological father in the court of law. Okay, under what? Under the legal name. Okay, remember, guys, which is what? The one who's obligated to pay support according to them, according to their rules, statutes, commandments. It's always been the name. That's why they need you to what? Acknowledge paternity by what? Placing the legal name on the legal document which creates the contract. And it's just that simple, guys. But let's continue on. It says, or one of which is complete and perfect so far as regards the apparent rights of ownership and possession, but which carries no beneficial interest in the property, another person being equitable entitled thereto, in either case, the antithesis of equitable title. Case law to support that, guys. So again, in order for the court to proceed or enforce the child support obligation, it must be done under the legal title, which is what? The legal father. Also known as another legal title called what? The obligor. That's why they have to, and they must change the status from biological to legal. Okay? Now let's go back to the acknowledgement of paternity form. Let's go there. Okay, guys, so now let's pick this up at the top where it states who can sign it. Let's read it. It states before signing an acknowledgement of paternity, or should we say before signing an admission of responsibility of paternity, you may wish to speak to a lawyer. You have a right to seek legal representation and supportive services, including counseling, to help you decide whether to sign the acknowledgement of paternity. Then it states at the top, you cannot sign an acknowledgement of paternity if 1. The mother was married at any time during the pregnancy or when the child was born. Okay, so this is to all the men who are trying to, get some type of custody over their child when the child was born by a married woman. Basically, meaning that you all had intimate intercourse with a woman who was currently married to someone else. So if if the one was already married and you guys had a child during that time frame while she was married, then you cannot acknowledge paternity. Okay. Then it states the mother is unmarried, but more than one man could be the child's father, or the child has not been born. So these are the reasons why you cannot acknowledge paternity for those who want to voluntarily acknowledge paternity, which I do not recommend. But let's continue. It states, do not sign an acknowledgement of paternity if, after reading this written notice and receiving oral notice, you have any doubts about the child's paternity. Okay, but let's continue. What effects does acknowledgement of paternity have? It states, an acknowledgement of paternity that has been voluntarily signed by both parties have the same legal force and effect as a court order determining the child's legal father and establish what? The duty of both parents to provide support for the child. So now I made a video titled The Legal Duty of Support. Go back after this video and watch that video to get more understanding, guys. But let's continue. This means that if the acknowledgement of paternity is not challenged, you do not have to go to court or administrative proceedings to determine or confirm the child's father. All right, but let's continue. It states, when a man signs an acknowledgement of paternity, he gives up what? His rights to a court hearing to determine if he is the child's father. He may establish custody and visitation rights. He may be required to give his consent before the child can be placed for adoption. It establishes the child's rights to inherit from the father if the acknowledgement of paternity is filed with the registrar in the district where the birth certificate was filed. So right here, guys, it's clear as day. Once paternity is established, right, the child can now inherit from the father, which creates, again, the legal duty of support, okay, which means that child's mom can now go down to the court and apply for services, or to the agency and apply for services, okay, for the child can collect. But without acknowledgement of paternity on it for the record, or being signed voluntarily, then the child has no recourse to the father's income at all. And it's just that simple, guys. But let's continue. It may establish the child's rights to inherit from the father if the acknowledgement of paternity is only filed with the putative father's registry. So again, in order for a child to receive benefits such as child support from the alleged father, the father must first establish the parent-child relationship by what? Voluntarily acknowledging paternity. After he does that, that creates the contract, and that also allows the child to come back and what? Start collecting, or the child's mom to go down and apply for services to collect on behalf of that child. So again, guys, this is in fact the contract, because acknowledgement of paternity must be established before the child can have any recourse to the father's income. And it's just that simple, guys, which further proves that this is in fact the contract. But let's continue. Okay, it states, what happens if you don't sign? Let's read it. It states, if an acknowledgement of paternity is not signed by both parents, the man will not have a duty to support the child. Remember, guys, I told you all, the acknowledgement of paternity creates the legal duty of support. Why? Because it establishes the parent-child relationship, which is all done legally, okay? Without that, and without that signature, and without that man's name on that document, then the child does not have a recourse to the father's income, which is, again, guys, is more evidence that the acknowledgement of paternity is, in fact, the contract. But let's continue. And his name, and what? And his name, and what? And his name cannot be on the birth certificate until there has been a hearing in court where he is determined to be the father of the child. Remember, guys, I did a video titled, they can only sue in name and be sued in name. It's only the name that they're bringing into the court, guys. Okay? Understand this. It's not the social security number. No, the social security number is used for strict enforcement, but the name is being sued. And it's just that simple, guys. Okay? Get the proper understanding. Let's continue on. If the court determines the man to be the father of the child, the court may make an order of support which may be retroactive to the birth of the child. Okay? But that's only after paternity is established. Again, paternity can only be established in what? 3 ways. Either he voluntarily signed an acknowledgment of paternity, he signed a birth certificate, or he voluntarily went down to the court and took a DNA test. All 3 of them are voluntary. And it's just that simple, guys. But let's continue. It states, if the mother applies for or receives public assistance, the mother's refusal to sign the acknowledgment of paternity cannot be considered a failure to cooperate in establishing paternity for the child. You see? So, the child's mom doesn't even have to acknowledge paternity or establish paternity, okay? The child will still receive the benefits. Why? Because I told you guys that the child is in fact the state's obligation, and it's just that simple. Okay? Until someone removes the state's obligation, which the father does, and what? Once he's signed the acknowledgement of paternity. And he decided to take on the burdens of the state. And it's just that simple. Let's continue on. It states, if a court hearing is required because both parents do not sign the acknowledgement of paternity, the man may have a right to free legal representation if he is unable to pay for a lawyer. So why do we give him free representation? Because that free representation will automatically turn him over to the jurisdiction of the court and place him as a ward of the state. So now the court will have authority to order him to do these things that the court want him to do. Why? Because he signed himself over to the jurisdiction. It's just that simple, guys. And, hold on, and the man has a right to genetic marker test or DNA test to help the court determine if he is the father. He don't need help determining if he's the father if he knows he's the biological father. He don't have to take on the status of the legal father if he chooses not to. That's only those who choose to take on the legal status of the legal father status becomes obligated to pay support via the contract of the acknowledgement of paternity. And it's just that simple. But let's continue. What happens after you sign? If you sign the acknowledgement of paternity at the hospital or social services district, the original acknowledgement of paternity will be filed for you with the registrar of the district where the birth certificate is filed, and the registrar will mail you a certified copy of the acknowledgement of paternity and for births in a New York hospital not located in New York City. Okay, guys, this is in fact the New York's acknowledgement of paternity, but this basically the same in every state, so don't worry about it. Say New York. It's the same in your state and every other state. But let's continue. The registrar will file a copy of the acknowledgement of paternity with the State Department of Health and with the Putative Fathers Registry. Or, for births in a New York hospital located in New York City, the registrar, New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, will file a copy of the acknowledgement of paternity with the Putative Fathers Registry. Then it says, if you do not sign the acknowledgement of paternity at the hospital or social services district, then it states you must mail and take the original acknowledgement of paternity to the registrar. All right, guys, we can pass all that. That has nothing really to do with what I'm trying to, go over right now. But let's pick this back at the top where it states, what is the Putative Father Registry? It states, the Putative Father Registry is a record of what? The names. A record of what? The names. The record of what? The names. Okay? Remember, they can only sue in name and be sued in name, and addresses of all persons who sign an acknowledgement of paternity or who are determined by the court to be the father of a child born to an unmarried mother. This information shall be released to a court or authorized agency upon request, but shall not be released to any other person without a court order for good cause shown. Why? Because they don't want you guys to go back and void them documents out. So they're trying to keep them documents as far away from you guys as possible, okay? Because they know it's these documents right here that they are using to establish the parental relationship, which places, men unaware on this thing called child support, okay? So now, let's pick this up at the top on the next page. Okay, it states, can you withdraw the acknowledgement of paternity after signing? The answer is yes. Either parent has the right to withdraw the acknowledgement of paternity by filing a petition to vacate with the family court. Okay? The petition can only be filed within the following time limits, which depend upon the age of the parent at the time the parent signs the acknowledgement of paternity. Remember, guys, Stop it before it starts for those who are not on support but they're trying to establish support against you. So let's read. The parent is 18 years or older when signing the acknowledgement of paternity. It states, within 60 days of the date of signing the acknowledgement of paternity, that's one reason you can use to vacate or to revoke your signature from that acknowledgement of paternity contract, okay? Then it states, within 60 days of the date of which an answer to a petition is required in a proceeding relating to the child and in which such parent is a party. Okay, so once they bring you to court, petition the court for support, you can do it, guys. Stop it before it starts. Okay, the same for both sides. Okay, it states, even on the right hand side, it states the parent is under 18 years old when signing the acknowledgement of paternity. It states within 60 days after that parent's 18th birthday, right? Then it states within 60 days after the date on which an answer to a petition is required in a proceeding relating to the child, and in which such parent is a party, provided the parent was advised at any such proceeding of the right to file a petition to vacate. Okay, stop it before it starts, guys. But let's continue. If the time limits have expired, right? So even if the time limits have expired, it states what? Either parent may only challenge the acknowledgement of paternity in court if it was signed based on fraud, duress, or mistake of material fact. Okay? Had to say that slow for you guys. If it was signed based on fraud, duress, or mistake of material fact. Okay? Then it states, the burden of proof is on the party wishing to withdraw the acknowledgement of paternity. Okay? Let's continue, guys. It states, if the petition to vacate is filed within the correct time limit, or if after the time limit expired, the parent has successfully challenged the acknowledgement of paternity in court, the court will order genetic marker test or DNA test to determine the child's father. The court will not order this testing, however, if it finds that it is not in the best interest of the child, neither parent's legal obligation, including the obligation to support the child, may be suspended during the challenge of the acknowledgement of paternity, except if the court finds good cause. So again, guys, this is remedy. I can't give it to you too much, but understand what's being said. Stop it before it starts. Let's continue. If the court determines, following a genetic marker test or DNA test, that the person who signed the acknowledgement of paternity is the father of the child, the court shall make a finding of paternity and enter an order of affiliation that states he is the father. If the court determines that the person who signed the acknowledgement of paternity is not the father of the child, the acknowledgement of paternity will be vacated, and the court will immediately provide a copy of the order to the registrar and to the putative father's registry. If a party is receiving child support services, a copy will be provided to the child support enforcement unit. Okay? So again, guys, this is what we're doing here. This is how you get remedy, okay? So now after going through this, all right, go back and watch Chris DeHiller's testimony, okay? Because he was in fact in New York. So for those who haven't watched that video, also go back and watch his testimony. And now, after going over the acknowledgement of paternity, you guys can start putting two and two together to see how we receive remedy, okay? But let's continue on. It states, can you get a new birth certificate after signing the form? All right? It states what? Yes. The acknowledgement of paternity is not, it says yes. If the acknowledgement of paternity is not signed at the time of birth, then a new birth certificate will be issued with the father's name included. With what? The father's name included. Do it say the father's name and social security number? No, just the father's name. Why? Because as stated before, they can only sue in name and be sued in name. But let's continue. If you change the child's last name when completing the acknowledgement of paternity, the child's last name will be changed on the new birth certificate. Okay? Then it states, questions regarding this form as it relates to the birth certificate process should be directed to the registrar of the district where the acknowledgement of paternity has been or will be filed or in New York City, to the New York City Department of Health and mental hygiene, okay? So again, we're going over this whole document, guys, just so you all can have no excuse, especially for those who are not on child support and for those who haven't signed the acknowledgement of paternity yet, okay? You have no excuse on why you guys should not have this understanding at the time of having this, at the time of this video, okay? Or even after this video, because now this video is up for all to see and get understanding from. Okay, so now let's put this back at the top where it states, do you have to pay for a new birth certificate, right? Then it states, if your child was born in New York Hospital, not in New York City, as stated before, guys, this is not only for New York, it's for every state. It states, and you are signing the acknowledgement of paternity after the original birth certificate was filed, the New York State Department of Health will issue a free birth certificate, right? Then it states, if your child was born in New York City Hospital and you are signing the acknowledgement of paternity after the original birth certificate was filed, the father will be issued one free birth certificate if the child is less than 1 year old, right? Then it states the mother may exchange the original birth certificate at no cost. After 1 year, there would be a replacement cost. So that's just further information, guys. And then it states again, pay close attention right here, guys. Why is establishing paternity important? It states there are benefits to establishing paternity for the mother, the father, and the child. For the child. Pay close attention, guys. For the child. Legal record of the identity of both parents. Father's name on the birth certificate. Again, father's name on the birth certificate. Then it states information on family medical history if needed for purposes of the child's medical treatment. Then it states emotional benefits of knowing both parents. Then it states right here, financial support from both parents, including child support, Social Security benefits, veterans benefits, military allowance, and inheritance. You see? So they only receive these type of benefits once acknowledgement of paternity is established. If acknowledgement of paternity is not established, then the child does not receive what? Support from both parents, including child support, Social Security benefits, veterans benefits, military allowance, or inheritance. Okay? Just that simple, guys. So again, this document is in fact the contract. Then it states health or life insurance from either parent if available. You see? Let's continue. Then it states for the mother, help ensuring parental responsibility. Again, there is no parental responsibility for the father if he doesn't sign the acknowledgement of paternity. But a man doing the right thing as the biological father will automatically take care of his seed. You don't need a document telling him to take care of his seed, okay? A man will take care of his seed on his own because that's what men do. Real stand-up men take care of their seed. But let's continue. Then it says information about medical history if needed for the purposes of the child's medical treatment. Improve financial security for the child. So again, this mother's only benefit basically is financial. But let's continue. Access to health insurance if available. All financial gain. Man, let's go to the father. For the father, legal establishment of parental rights, which is basically a contract created out of fraud, which will place a burden on the father. Let's continue. Father's name on the birth certificate, which will also place a burden on the father, which creates a legal duty of support, which creates his obligation to support that alleged child. Then it states right to seek court order, custody, or visitation, which he can do without a document because his seed came from his bowel, so that's his seed. He can see his seed whenever he wants to, so that's not a benefit. Then it states rights to be informed and to have a say in adoption proceedings, if any. Since it's his biological seed, he always has the right and say so what goes on with his seed, and it's just that simple. Okay? Then it says, what if you still have questions? And you all can pause and read that right there, okay? And this is the actual acknowledgement of paternity form. All right, so now let's go over it. In the dead center of the page, it states what? Acknowledgement of paternity. The first section is for the child. You all can pause and read it. But also, let's go over the paragraph written in Italian style lettering. It states what? Right here. We understand that signing this acknowledgement of paternity is voluntary and will establish paternity of our child and have the same force and effect as an order of affiliation determining paternity and entered after a court hearing, including an obligation to provide support for our child. So you hear that, guys? Again, signing this acknowledgement of paternity, what? Creates the legal duty of support. That's why it states, entered after a court hearing, including an obligation to provide support for our child, except that only if this acknowledgement of paternity is filed with the registrar, where the birth certificate is filed with the acknowledgement of paternity, have such force and effect with respect to inheritance rights. We have received written and oral notice of our legal rights, including the time frames to withdraw, responsibilities, alternatives, and the consequences of signing the acknowledgement of paternity. And we understand that the notice states a copy of the written notice has been provided to us. We certify that the information we provide below is true. So again, guys, the acknowledgement of paternity is the contract that creates the legal duty of support, okay? Which puts the obligation of support on the alleged legal father, okay? So now as you all can see, the next section is the father section, okay? Which states what? The father's name, his street, the alleged street address, city, state, zip, place of birth, city, state, zip, his country, his date of birth, also the social security number. But as I stated before, the social security number is strictly on this document for what? For enforcement activities, for strict enforcement activities, okay? How else do they put it on your credit report, garnishes your wages and all that? It's due to the social security. But the support order comes from what? The name, because the name is attached to the order. And remember, they can only sue a name and be sued a name. So again, the social security number is on the document for strict enforcement activities. That's it. That's all. And then it states what? I hereby acknowledge that I am the biological father of the child named above, with his signature, and then what? Witnesses' signatures. Like I tell you guys, out of the mouth of two witnesses, 2 or 3 witnesses, let each matter be established. On this document, there's what? A space for 2 witnesses to sign. To do what? To testify against the father when he says that he's not taking care of the child. Okay? Let's continue on. Also the mother. Okay? Same thing. Her name, city, state, street address, all of that is on their place of birth. All of that, her date of birth. Also her social security number on there as well. Okay? So let's continue. And it states on hers, or her portion, I hereby consent to the acknowledgement of, let me go back. I hereby consent to the acknowledgement of paternity for my child named above, and acknowledge that the man named above is the only possible father of my child who was born to me. I state that I was not married at the time during the pregnancy or when the child was born, or I state that I have subsequently married the child's biological father. Okay, her signature signs their date, birth, the date that she signed. Also, 2 witnesses on that document as well. Okay, then it states what? The above acknowledgement of paternity is hereby filed, right? Then it says, if this document is to amend the birth certificate, I certify that I examined the original records. This seeks to amend, and the information on this document matches. There are no omissions or apparent errors that render it unacceptable for amending the birth record. This document is therefore approved. Okay, the state register, the deputy city register, signature and date. Okay, and this is the father information right there, and the mother's information. Okay, so again, guys, that's all I'm gonna do for today. We went over this entire document to get full understanding of what's going on, what created the contract, how's all this affecting you guys, and how do you end up in a situation called child support. Okay, so again, if you all need my help, hit me up in my email at yahuah@gmail.com. Let's get this right wisdom, this right knowledge, and this right understanding. With that being said, I say shalom.